So why would you want to make a dirt bike street legal? Well, why wouldn't you want to? I think the only downfall is you have to give a little bit more money to the state. Other than that, with my riding style at least, I always find myself on the road or having to use the road to get to the next trail. It's a peace of mind knowing that you're playing by the rules and you're pretty much covered in every state, with the exception of having to buy a trail pass to ride in some different areas. Now, each state is different and some states can make this process damn near impossible, but you always have the option of registering your dirt bike in a different state. Now, I'm not gonna go into any of that in today's video, but in most states, it is very much possible. There's just different hoops that you have to jump through. If you don't want to waste your time going in and talking to them in person, give your local title agency a phone call and ask about the process. Make sure you talk to multiple people though, because I've had different employees tell me different things. So ultimately, you just have to talk to the right people to get the right answers. I just so happen to live in the butthole of America that is Ohio, and thankfully they make this process super easy. As long as you have a clean and clear title. Bill of sales are irrelevant. Paper written documents, none of it matters. You need to have a title. Since the late 90s, every dirt bike, ATV, side-by-side, OHV has come with a title. So if you don't have a title, you need to start there. Your best option may even be to sell the bike and get something with a title. You're talking a lot of paperwork, court hearings. Sometimes you can scribe your VIN, run a VIN search at the local sheriff's department. It's rare, but I have seen it done. You also have the option of filing for an abandonment title, but most cases, for something newer especially, it's just not gonna happen and it's gonna be a big hassle. But once again, that's a topic for a completely different video. Here in my state, as long as you have a clean and clear Ohio title, you can request to change it to a street legal motorcycle title, raise your right hand, and sign your life away that all of the required steps have been done to make your bike street legal. No inspections, no additional questions. As long as the employee knows what they're doing and knows the law, you can get it done. Now, each state is different with their specific requirements to make a dirt bike street legal, but at the bare minimum, you need a headlight, tail light, blinkers, horn, and a mirror. Turn signals are optional in some states, but I still recommend running them and using them in combination with hand signals. Now, if you do live in a state that requires you to bring your dirt bike in for an inspection, make sure you have everything done on the list, even down to the tires. Make sure you have a DOT legal tire. They might check your exhaust to make sure you have a spark arrestor. Here in Ohio, we can actually register 2-strokes, which is freaking awesome.
2-stroke?
Most of the 2-strokes that you've seen on the channel, all the KTMs, the KDX, have been street legal. Sometimes you're not only required to have a headlight, but have to have a separate high and low beam with a visible switch. So if you can't find it on the website, go ahead and call and just get a checklist of all those things you need so you don't waste your time, especially if you have to go get an inspection. Thankfully, Ohio is pretty easygoing, but I still try to play by the rules because I don't want to get pulled over someday and get a ticket for not having one of those items. But in the rest of the video, I'm going to be walking you through the install of the Tusk Street Legal Kit from the great people over at Rocky Mountain. The Street Legal Kit from Tusk consists of a tail assembly with tail light, brake light, a brake light switch that ties into your rear brake lever, front and rear turn signals, a horn, they give you a flasher relay, all of the wiring, necessary switches, a mirror, pretty much everything except the headlight. Now there's a bunch of headlight options out there. You can kind of pick and choose what you want. You can go on the cheaper side or you can get something nice like the Squadron from Baja Designs. These lights use super high quality LEDs. The power draw is really low. They look fantastic, and overall, this is my second one now and I wouldn't hesitate buying another. Now I'll stop you right here. This only applies for a bike that already comes with a 12-volt system. If you're trying to do this on a kickstart bike, that opens up a whole different world of challenges. It can be done. You're just gonna have to introduce a battery to the system, a way to charge it. Is your stator gonna have to be upgraded? If you search around, there's plenty of people on YouTube that have done it, and they might have done it for your specific bike, so just search around. Another option, if you don't have a stator that's big enough to charge a battery, is to just run a nice quality lithium battery that you can just charge at the end of the day. You can even use like a power tool battery. I'm a Milwaukee guy, so I'd throw a big M18 in there and you can just pop it out at the end of the day and go ahead and charge it. They even have little adapter plates that have wires off of them. You can tie directly into that. So that's a good option if you don't have a 12-volt system. But once again, that is a topic for a completely different video. The kit from Tusk makes this super easy, and other than a few little modifications that I did, just follow the instructions and you'll be good to go. Let's get right into this. We're gonna start out at the rear of the bike. I went ahead and took the plastics off, the seat off to gain access to everything. I went ahead and dry fit the tail assembly. We ended up only fastening this with 2 carriage bolts. That seemed to be plenty. I was gonna throw a couple zip ties towards the front under the frame there, but it just did not need it. This was not something included, so you can get creative with this. Every bike's different, so however you wanna mount it, just go for it. Next, I mocked up the turn signals how I wanted them. I went ahead and traced out on both sides so I could get them to match, just kind of doing it by eye. You're gonna wanna drill 2 holes, one to run the wire through and then one for the hardware. These flush mount turn signals are really nice because they don't stick out very far and they're not gonna be getting ripped off by branches and the ground when you inevitably crash. After that, I went ahead and installed the brake switch. So this actually ties into the banjo bolt and it has a sensor in there and it can tell when you press down the pedal. So that's gonna activate your brake light. Pretty quick, simple. You do have to bleed the brakes after this, so be sure you do that. I ended up just flushing out the whole system because like every other thing on this bike, it was clapped. Now here's where you need to put on your big boy or big girl pants and get organized. There is a lot of wiring involved, so you wanna keep everything tidy. Plan out your routing from back to front. Know where you're gonna wrap around the frame here, move over there because it's all connected and it would be a pain to get to the end and then realize you have to undo something to go back and route it through a different way. So this is gonna be different for everybody. I didn't go too overboard, but I did use a number of zip ties, some electrical tape to clean things up. Just do this every step along the way, but the biggest thing is just having a whole overview and idea of where things will go. So obviously you have a ground and a positive that's gonna run to your battery with an inline fuse on the positive. But now that we have the rear dome, we're gonna move towards the front of the bike. So we're gonna go ahead and mount the flasher relay. This is gonna prevent the annoying hyper flash. I scoped out a few different locations. I did it differently on my bike, but we actually ended up running a self-tapper through the frame up by the head tube. I know some people are gonna cringe at that, but it's a tiny hole. This bike is pretty clapped and the location just worked out perfectly. The steering doesn't get in the way at all and it looks good there. So after that, we searched for a place to mount the horn. Now you really want to find a place where you can mount the horn so it's oriented in the right direction. On my bike, the guy before me had put it sideways and it is barely audible because the plastics are pressing up against it. But I ended up finding a 90-degree bracket right underneath the fuel tank that was in the perfect spot. So I drilled a hole, found a spacer, ran a bolt with a lock washer on there and a lock nut, and man, this really does look factory. So just get creative and find a good location for your horn. So at this point, I already mounted the switch, and that's where I'll go ahead and tell you I didn't run the included on-off switch. I ended up bypassing this switch and tied it into the light switch. So turning on the low beam or the high beam activates the entire system. And that way, if you ever want to turn it off and go stealth,
going dark.
Just one button is all you need. I like a clean handlebar setup, and having that additional switch just didn't make sense, especially with these 7/8 bars. We ended up chopping them down a little bit for Alexis and there just wasn't enough room. So if you've never used a test light before, this is a good project to start out. Just get your test light out and just start prodding things and figuring out where you want to send power. You can get creative with this and add whatever kind of accessories you want and have different switches control different things. It's really up to you how you want to do everything, or you can just follow the instructions and do it by the book. But the white wire for the low beam, I went ahead and tied into the red wire for the on-off switch, and I tied the blue wire, which is for the high beam, into the hot circuit. So if that's confusing for you, just don't do it. Follow the book, and if you want to get creative someday, you'll have that option. So we actually ordered the integrated handguard signals from Tusk. I prefer these over the regular style signals that are included because I don't like the way they stick out. I don't like the way they look, and they're prone to just getting ripped off. I like this nice sleek look. This doesn't add any extra profile to the bike, and they're built right into these handguards. So they offer a couple different models that have these cutouts, but you got a positive and a ground coming off of these. Just tie it into your harness, and that is it. Now for the most attractive part of this build, the beautiful Baja Designs headlight. Now they really make it difficult for you to tie into the high beam versus the low beam, so we opted to just use one beam altogether. I apologize to any oncoming traffic, but for a small bike like this, I like to be seen. In the daytime, it's not really gonna be too bothersome, but at nighttime, yeah, it'll be pretty bright. You can always just move it out a little bit to get the beam to face towards the ground. But most of the time, this is gonna be used for off-road use only, and we love the output of this light. But that wraps up the Tusk Street Legal Kit install and how to turn your plain dirt bike into a lightweight dual sport that'll take you to a lot more places legally. Now at this point in the video, I'm asking you for help. If you've ever gone through this process, I want you to leave a comment what state you're in and what you had to do to convert your dirt bike to being street legal. Like I said, as long as you have a clean and clear title, there is no reason why you can't get this done. You're just gonna have to jump through more hoops depending on what state you're in, and ultimately you might have to register the bike in a different state. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can check out my website, advdailyco.com. We finally have some apparel. Also, if you're interested in any of the products we used in today's video, be sure to check out the description. They will be linked below, and I get a small kickback if you end up buying anything. And other than having to spend a little money here and there to have some more fun, always remember to live free, adventure daily, and we'll see you in the next video.